This is Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have Jesse Singh, the CEO of Azek Company, an amazing company that's growing so fast. But it's amazing because, Jesse, it's aligned with a book that I wrote, Compassionate Capitalism. I have challenged CEOs like yourself of multi-billion dollar companies to work a little bit harder and a little bit smarter to help other people and make a lot of money. As you know, the motto is make a lot of money to help a lot of people and have a lot of fun, and you seem to have your pulse and your thumb right on top of that. When in your career did you shift your paradigm or perspective that it wasn't just good enough in business to make a lot of money, that there had to be something bigger and better to do?
Yeah, well, first, great to be on. I think as you look at it, when you grow up, I was fortunate. I had a good family, and there's always a dialogue when you're growing up about doing the right thing, doing good, being honest, working hard, which many people are fortunate enough to grow up in. I think that's always been there. I think for me, excuse me, I think for me, the biggest shift has really been around when you take away the focus from yourself to something bigger and broader. And specifically, I remember my first leadership role probably a little over 20 years ago now. And you're going through a cycle of leading people, and you're worried about how you look, how you're acting, what difference you're making for yourself, right? Is this going well for me? And I think something shifted, and it was a conversation I had with someone, and they said, you got to take the focus off yourself and shine the spotlight on everybody else, and it will work out. And that's always stuck with me. You have the upbringing, but when you're actually dealing with an organization, to get that kind of feedback really just it hit me. And really since then, I've continued to work on how do we make the company better, how do we make the world better. And I've been fortunate over the last really 20 years since that conversation. It's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, the for me world is interesting. I remember walking into a speech with Leigh Steinberg, who, I was CEO of his company, and I said, "Hey, do I look okay?" And he said, "David, I will tell you this right now. What's going on in the minds of everyone out there right now is not how you look." They're sitting there asking everyone else, "Oh my God, is my hair okay? Do I look okay?" But there is an interesting nuance to taking care of other people. We can't worry about for me, but we do have to take care of ourselves as executives and as a company, because the stronger you are personally and the stronger you are professionally as a company, the more people you can take care of, the better quality of products, the better distribution, the more you can give back to the community, more people to hire, all the great things that you do so well with AZEC. For you, was there a time when you weren't putting yourself first, not necessarily thing for you, but you were more worried about the family and the business than your own health or other things that may put you in a detrimental position?
Yeah, at first I think it's a very insightful question. The you start it's earlier in my career. I would say I had anxiety, not real clinical anxiety, but I was anxious about
I love
doing.
I love the way guys our age today, we have to like preface you like, well, I'm not talking about the exact
Yeah,
same anxiety that all these like Adderall kids are talking, the
yeah,
Xanax
yeah.
kids are talking about. Like, just I get nervous sometimes.
Yeah, normally, and I've got a daughter who's in her mid 20s, a couple of daughters in their 20s, and you keep having a discussion that being anxious at work is a normal thing, right?
Right.
Because you're starting your career, and you just there's things at stake finally, and what you do matters. And I kept never getting to working out or that was always secondary. And for me, after my second child, I remember jogging after a stroller and like not feeling great. And I'm like, okay, this is no way. This is no way to like manage a family or to manage a business is if I can't even run after a stroller and not feel it, right? So so really since then, which once again is a little over 20 years ago, um, you start to realize that you've got to sleep well. There's certain times now where I'll cancel meetings or, I'll bug out of things just because I know the most important thing I can do is be there for people and be 100% for people. If I'm not taking care of my health or I'm not well rested, I'm not a very good leader. I'm a lot more ornery. My team can pick it up, all that sort of stuff. And so I do think not just, and I'm not talking about meditating every day and the stuff you read on LinkedIn. I'm just talking about basic stuff. Getting enough exercise, sleeping well,
And
really making
eating
sure that your
decent.
mind is ready, right?
Yeah.
For whatever it is your team's going to have, and I think that as a leader, that's become more and more important.
As an entrepreneurial executive of a billion-dollar company or multi-billion-dollar company, it's okay just to break even. I have three daughters, two in their 20s. So if I break even, I'm fine. You just don't want to go the other way and end up 47 pounds overweight, out of breath when you're chasing those strollers. One of the other interesting nuances that I find, and obviously I deal with a lot of companies that have sustainable products and claim to be, giving back, and it has gone to that, the halo effect in the old days. There's a lot of companies that talk the talk. And when it comes to doing well and good and sustainability, I find that we've lost a little bit of momentum because, like anything else, a lot of people like to proclaim that they're doing well and good. But your company, after doing a lot of research, which I like to do, I mean, you guys really walk the walk. It's not just a marketing plan, it's actually inherent within the culture about what you do. And you really seem to walk the walk. And so, what does that mean to you as a leader? Because it is much more expensive. And beyond expense, it takes a lot more thought and leadership to really walk the walk and not just put out a branding campaign that doing well and good is our motto.
Well, I think first, just for those that may not know it, we basically take recycled materials and make composite decking under our TimberTech brand, and we do a similar thing with the Azek brand. And so for us, we built a business model around continuing to expand recycle. When I came 5 years ago, we were using some recycle, and at some point as a leader, you just got to place a bet. And a few years back, we took a big swing and we said we're going to double the amount of recycle we've used. We did that, and now we're going to double it again to 1 billion pounds annually. And at some point, you as a leader and we as a company, we had to make that decision. Now that we've made the decision, candidly, it becomes pretty straightforward, right? Companies have an ability and organizations have an ability to really organize around a commitment. And so for us, that commitment's been around recycling. It's been around, right now we're moving towards disclosure on how much carbon we generate. At some point, we'll make a commitment on that, but we know it's coming. We have to do the groundwork, and we've got a commitment to diversity and inclusion. So, like anything you do in a business, you've got to take a stand, whether that's we want to double the business, or whether that's we want to double our recycling. Once you take that stand, organizations are really good at working their way around it. And I think for us, people can get caught up we're a public company. There's a lot of quote ESG investors, and environmental sustainability and governance, and I'm sorry, environmental, social, and governance. And a lot of times people get hung up on trying to check the box. And like anything else in business or life, you can't get hung up on metrics and what other people think. You've got to choose a path. And for us, it's really fortunate that the path we've chosen now is also one that's consistent with how we view the future for all companies.
And with that public interest, you guys had your IPO about a year ago, and it's not just systematically things change, obviously, as a public company, but emotionally, I was the CEO of a public company myself. I think a lot of people don't understand the emotional aspect of shareholder value, which changes enormously, but also you attach your emotions to going public as a leader, and then that day passes, you ring the bell, and the next morning, now you got a real job to do. What was that like for you, mindset wise, up to the IPO and now here, 1 year post IPO? What do you look back and say, wow, I did this really well, or maybe you learned a lesson that you could share with us as well?
Yeah, that as you point out, that whole process is interesting, right? Because you're running a company, and you run a company for the long term, and then in the middle of it, you have a moment, like almost like a graduation, right? And the company morphs from being something that is numbers and dialogue that only you know about, to a whole lot of people know about the company, and you have a lot of shareholders. So I think for me it was incredible, both for the team and at a personal level. I happen to have done it from the same office I'm in now. I did it remotely, and so it in a weird way it was intimate, because I had a chance to celebrate with my family, who was all home for COVID, and so that's unusual. But you're right. The day after you process it, and then you realize you now have a whole nother set of expectations, and at some level it's a step in the journey, but it's a bit like graduating college, right? Now the expectations kick in, and for us it was great, because we had an influx of money that allowed us to pay down debt, which gave us freedom to continue to reinvest in the business aggressively, which we've been doing. But it's interesting, every day that unfolds, you're always looking to be better, but you're looking at it through a very public lens, right? As opposed to being private. you know Things can work out or not work out, but people don't know. In our case, we're very sensitive on just making sure that whatever we say, everyone knows, and we've got to deliver against it. So as a leader, it's I would say it adds a whole lot of complexity, but there's enormous benefits, right? It's easier to talk to employees, it's easier to talk to friends and acquaintances, but it is like a graduation,
I love
as you point out. The world changes.
I love that
You don't always
analogy.
talk about it, right? Because your company's on a journey, but personally, the world does change pretty significantly.
Which is fantastic, and as you said, it has its pressures as well when everything is public. One of the things I love about doing the playbook, with over 800 of the greatest leaders in their industries, I get to see a common denominator. And as we have a new show, Office Hours, with everyone from Deepak Chopra to Cameron Diaz to Maria Sharapova, Danica Patrick, to just sit, Arthur Blank to Tillman Fertitta, people like yourself. And it's just amazing, the one common denominator in all, from billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes, and entertainers, they all have a desire that they must be what they can be. They have an extraordinary ambition. And I have been playing around with understanding how ambitious people, or people with this spirit of excellence, or this desire that they must be what they can be, aren't necessarily great leaders. Some are and some aren't. They're great performers because they're pursuing their potential, but they're not necessarily, that ambition is not necessarily make you a great leader. What's your vision, in your experience, being one of these great leaders who obviously has that spirit of excellence and a desire that you must be what you can be?
Yeah, I think it's first, I think it's a good question, right? Because someplace along the way, this word ambition comes up, right? And you've got to be committed to I mean, personally, you have to be committed to do what it takes to win, right? But at some point, and I mentioned that earlier, kind of the lens shifted away from me onto the organization. you start to view it through a filter of not what you're accomplishing, but what the organization is accomplishing. And so it's this transference of ambition away from you personally, knowing that it will work out to you, for you, to how do we make sure that the organization is fulfilling its destiny, right? And for me, that's been, the biggest aspect. You at a personal level, I'm, like many of the people you probably, it's amazing you mentioned me in the same, sentence as some of these great folks, right? But people, I personally accomplished whatever I needed to accomplish when I was a kid. It's more than I ever thought I'd accomplish. But what drives me now is the organization and the company has such huge potential that it's really around how do I unlock that potential? And it gets back to it's less about me. It ends up being more about what's the ambition for the organization. We should make a much bigger difference in the world. 500 million pounds of recycled to a billion, that hopefully we can be one of the largest recyclers on the planet that's using that recycled material to build, sustainable outdoor living spaces. And so that to me is the single biggest driver. And if you can get the organization aligned to that vision, it starts to make a big difference.
Yeah, and you guys announced the goal of using over 1 billion pounds of recycled materials for your products by 2026. I'm on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy, but I don't limit myself to the date. You're a little bit more aggressive than I am.
Well,
And
my
long.
goal's a little easier, candidly, right? So,
I wish it
yeah.
wasn't, but yeah, it probably is. And both, though, will contribute to an abundant world that we can live in where there's enough of everything for everyone and that we don't have to have the perspective of limited resources. And you certainly have no expectation of limiting yourself or limiting your company or limiting our world, which is what I love about your business and you. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me.